So let's take a look at some possible Admech model teasers, some intriguing new lore of Belisarius' Call assaulting the Pariah Nexus in force, a contents reveal of the Pariah Nexus Crusade book, and the teased return of the digital series. Lots to talk about for the Necrons and Admech today. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today I thought I'd go over a whole cluster of news and things for Admech and the Necrons. These ones not hard match play rules from the Codex or anything like that, but a few really interesting details as to lore and peripheral releases from Games Workshop. Basically, over the last 24 hours, Games Workshop dropped a cluster of Admech, Necron and Pariah Nexus news articles, of which I think there were a few really interesting things revealed. Here's the short list of things that I'll cover: artwork with the potential to tease some future Admech releases, maybe, perhaps, a few other fun art pieces, lore of the progression of the Warhammer 40k narrative in the Pariah Nexus sector of space, with Core launching an attack to raid some Blackstone, a bunch of Crusade things, including the contents of the Pariah Nexus Crusade book and the Necron Codex, and the teased return of the digital series Pariah Nexus. It seems that this is very much the setting for the 40k narrative over the next month or so. First up, I thought I'd start with this artwork, which is a rather cool one that they've got when they're talking about the Pariah Nexus narrative that's going on at the moment. Basically a bunch of Admech going mining. They're presumably extracting some Blackstone or Noctilith and carrying it back to their fleet to cook up some arcane technology. In the image, though, are really quite a lot of interesting things that could represent new units for the faction. Absolutely definitely not guaranteed or anything like that, but Games Workshop does have rather a lot of history with this kind of artwork and things in the background turning into proper units. Say, for example, we had the Mephitic Blight Hauler for the Death Guard, or the Astra Militarum Rogel Dawn battle tank spotted in the background of previous artwork before they released the model. Unfortunately, at this point, it certainly wouldn't be with the Admech Codex release that's coming this week. We already know the contents of that and the datasheets that are and aren't going to be present, so it wouldn't be anything to get too excited for in the meantime. But I think it is genuinely possible that one or more of these could make an appearance, either for a later release in this edition, or perhaps more likely in the next edition, given that Games Workshop usually saves up major release waves for when the codexes drop. For the three most interesting things in the image, there's some fun Spider Walker mining things, almost looking a little bit like the Onager Dune Crawler, but a bit more spindly and basically just a massive great big laser on legs. Definitely could just be fun Admech backdrop to provide them with a bit more of a setting with cutting the Blackstone out of some rock, but the Admech absolutely do have precedent with just enormous self-propelled guns like the Ordinatus model from the Horus Heresy line. I'd guess that this one doesn't quite look on the same scale as that, but does feel like something that could be kind of creative and ties in with heresy type ranges maybe. Enormous great big self-propelled death laser could be pretty good for the Admech. They might overlap a little bit with the Onager Dune Crawlers with the neutron lasers for battlefield role. Otherwise, hovering rather creepily in the sky are a few things that look like they're sort of insectoid self-propelled hover automata. A few spindly legs or tendrils, plus a single lens eye thing, and hovering aloft, presumably on some engines under that carapace. Definitely bears at least some passing resemblance to the Volterac Stratos automata from Horus Heresy. Again, absolutely something that they could add to the line if they wanted to. Not necessarily the same thing, but perhaps a near equivalent for 40k, as they often do when they're translating things between the settings. Finally, and perhaps most impressively, at the front of the image is the Tepris with some kind of mining laser. Looks a little bit different stylistically compared with some of the other Tepris that we've seen so far, but there's still the basic elements there, like a servo arm, and he seems to have a few Servo Skull Observer friends. If he ever got a release, he could be interesting to have a Tepris with a bit more range threat, and looks like he'd fall in line alongside a Tepris Engineer or Techno-Archaeologist, if indeed he did turn out to be a new unit. I certainly wouldn't set any major hopes on these for next time round. Certainly could all just be wishful thinking, but they do have precedent with doing this in the past. I genuinely think that any of those three released as a kit for the Admech would be pretty interesting. Otherwise, there's another couple of pieces of art that they published alongside it. Some Necrons doing a bit of scheming there with a great big galactic map. And this rather epic one with Necrons versus Admech en masse. Admech Vanguard in the foreground, and I believe that might be a Seraptech construct of the Necrons in the background, plus an Imperial Titan, and all manner of greater or lesser Necron warriors and Lich Guard and things striding forward. The artwork pieces are to represent Games Workshop's next evolution in the lore for the Pariah Nexus, the concept that they introduced towards the end of 8th edition, basically a big area of space where Necrons have created some great big blackstone beacons and created an effect called the Stilling over a vast swathe of space, within which beings of the living have to fight to maintain will to stay alive. Entire systems wiped out as their occupants just stood there and did nothing until they eventually died. The lore at the end of 8th edition and the start of 9th was that a battle group called Calades got bogged down fighting the Necrons within the region, not really knowing what they'd stumbled into until it was too late, and then these were unable to evacuate due to the stilling of the warp becoming their ships, so sent out requests for aid to come and help them out. It now seems of all the Imperial forces, the Adeptus Mechanicus have come to help out, and in command is none other than the designer of the Primaris project, Belisarius Call himself, under Battle Group Hephaestus, answering the summons with all the might of the Omnissiah. Unfortunately for the becalmed ships, according to Games Workshop, they're kind of less interested with helping out the fleet compared with extracting vast quantities of blackstone to craft something that they call liminal abrasors for his fleet to do something called precisely modulate the energies of the warp. Not sure if those things are just supposed to mean better warp travel or something specific for the Pariah Nexus. It doesn't look like it's a concept that's been introduced in 40k before from a quick Google search at least. Sounds like Games Workshop might be queuing up for some fun Admech Doomsday shenanigans as well. They said that he's basically been joined by some radical and ambitious tech priests who have smuggled some experimental or forbidden super weapons to the Nexus. So I'm guessing a few of the narrative points of the book that comes out will probably all focus around doomsday weapons being let off by these Admech guys. I'm sure much to the dismay of the Necrons, but perhaps even more so to any Imperial fighters within the vicinity as well. Apparently the Necrons, for their part, will be fighting on home turf and will probably have numbers advantages, as it's just not really a foe that you tangle with lightly in the first place, so the Imperium might be helped out a bit by the fact that the Necrons are embroiled in a civil war at the moment, Imhotep the Stormlord versus the Silent King. Their general narrative is that Imhotep was one of the first Necron overlords to wake up and was able to assert his control over a vast swathe of space as a result, and now the Silent King has returned to the realm of the unliving. He's not too happy about some jumped-up noble trying to usurp him while he slumbered. I suspect that conflict probably isn't going to be enough to give the Admech forces any sort of easy time though. Sounds kind of fun, and when the book comes out I might well do a quick review of the lore, if time permits on the channel and it's interesting enough. Talking of which, apparently that lore is going to be expanded on in the Crusade book for Pariah Nexus. This is the one that Games Workshop teased that is set in that benighted area of space, and they said in the preview article for it that it will be available next year, despite it being quite clearly themed around the Necron Admech type codexes that are going to be coming just this week. I kind of wonder if it might have been delayed a fair bit if it's not dropping alongside the codexes, as that would seem like the ideal solution for GW. For the content of the book, it's going to go into the lore of that conflict and hopefully expand and give some sort of resolution to the overall narrative, and otherwise it's going to be Crusade focused. Battle traits, Crusade relics, blessings and agendas from the Pariah Nexus sector, 15 new Crusade missions, and then perhaps the most interesting thing might be the interlocking campaign series that they have, something to do with fighting over resources in Blackstone worlds and having different factions nominated as Seekers, Protectors and Interlopers. I guess the Protectors will be the Necrons in this case, Seekers might be people trying to plunder Blackstone, and perhaps Interlopers are folks just trying to survive. The price would likely be the same as the Tyrannic War one, so the same price as a standard codex, £35, €45 or $60, though I guess helpfully enough for people who are playing match play 40k, they're not trying to shoehorn in arbitrary match play content to try and make you buy it, much like they did at the start of 9th. Kind of wonder if it might have a few overlapping things from the 8th edition supplement Pariah. It seems at least kind of similar in name, even if it was a bit before the days when Crusade came out. Otherwise, talking of Crusades, they showed a few things off from the Necron Crusade content from the Codex. I like the general idea of the rules at least. The theme is that as you command your Necron army from battle to battle, you're basically commanding a tomb world as it slowly comes online, starting off dormant and then gradually awakening more systems and more options until it's at the height of its powers. I'd guess you'd have the usual system where you can requisition more units as you awaken more Necrons from the crypts, and then the core feature is going to be a system of power points that you can either assign to different systems within the tomb world, either the command structure, reanimation structure, or the translocation, transport type structure perhaps, and set yourself goals to try and achieve within game, like this awakening agenda where you get more power points towards the reanimation system if you manage to reanimate a certain level of wounds as the game goes on. You can then get army buffs for the power things that you've activated, like the Resurrection Flux one, making a few more wounds of warriors and things come back once these squads are depleted. Sounds like it's quite an involved system as well. They've also got another rule system called Master Systems, a once per game flexible boost to a single unit. They previewed one called Contra Mortis Protocol here, which gives you two different choices of how you boost reanimation protocols for a unit once per game. Sort of feels like an extra stratagem that you could have on standby. I did quite like the lore snippet that they had for recovering Crusade relics as well, like this Orb of Eternity, stating that your overlords might gradually remember the codes to ancient vaults of technological terrors. Very much feels like a sleepy overlord recovering from a millennia-long stasis, slowly getting the metallic processes of his mind up to speed. Otherwise, though, it'll be all the standard sections from normal Crusade things, like battle scars and stuff. Finally, for our Necron, Admech and Pariah Nexus things, Games Workshop also teased as well that the Pariah Nexus animated series will return. This one was quite a popular 3-part series on Warhammer Plus, primarily focused on just a few key characters, mainly a Battle Sister and Salamander taking on the Necrons. Generally, it's been considered pretty well done. If you did have a Warhammer Plus membership, then it might well be worth a watch. Games Workshop maybe didn't explicitly say that there's going to be more, but they did basically make a post that had the Pariah Nexus logo all over it. They said that it isn't over, as the teaser demonstrates, and they say there's more action to come. They did have a little teaser video, but it didn't really say anything more than a Sarkhan will return. So I guess they're either gearing up for a part 2 of the series, or could just be a single animated short or special, I guess, along the same theme. No idea when that exactly might materialise. They do tend to have a bit of a long lead time between first announcing a project and then actually getting it delivered. Pariah Nexus was announced absolutely ages ago when Warhammer Plus was first in its infancy, so absolutely no idea as to the timescale for this one. Should be fun though for people who enjoyed the first one or just want to see some salamanders punch up some Necrons. Overall, a few intriguing bits there. I think the most interesting things for me were probably the teased image of the Admech. If they are indeed turning out to be new models, then that would be absolutely excellent, though if so, they're probably a long way in the future. The whole narrative of core making war on the Pariah Nexus is a fun one as well. Interesting to see established characters interact, and the idea of a whole load of renegade tech priests rocking up with all manner of disturbing super weapons does sound like a fun one to me. Let me know your thoughts on them or any other details I might have missed down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video and you'd like to keep up with Games Workshop's news, rumours and rules releases, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly be reviewing both Codex Necrons and Codex Adeptus Mechanicus as soon as I can on the channel. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, which is the main way that I can keep this content coming quite this often. If you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.